Welcome back to The Different Knock. What a game that was on Sunday, eh? Pulsating, electrifying. The Emirates was in full flow as Arsenal slapped Liverpool down and then celebrated far too much, obviously. It does make you wonder what an acceptable celebration would be to Richard Keys and the Sky panel, and I look forward to their retrospective statements about Klopp running onto the pitch being too much as well. Or we could just stop policing people's emotions. A little bit later, I want to talk about the shape of the league and how and if Arteta compares to Pep and Klopp. But first, there's an important message Mikel is trying to put across in the media at the moment, and I'll be damned if I'm not going to try and help him. I don't think this is being talked about enough, possibly because it requires some interpretation, which I'll try to do, but also because I think it holds some huge clues to the identity and future of this manager. We can't call him a Pep clone forever. Let's have a listen.
Yeah, control is not really a word that I like. I like dominance and don't allow any teams to breathe more than control, and especially in which part of the pitch that happens. That's the most important thing in my opinion.
Key part for me, I don't like control, I like dominance. And it's not the first time he said it. Back in December, he said something very similar. And of course, there's this passage that goes around from, I believe, a book on Pep Guardiola he contributed to, where he talks about intensity and aggression in key 1v1 moments. It's very hard to expect large swathes of people to really understand something you're trying to do, especially in football. But what you can do is give people a framework of understanding or a reference. In other words, Mikel can't get a whiteboard out in a press conference and explain the intricacies of juego de posición, but he can use words to evoke certain reactions and therefore give people a bit of an easier frame of reference. Political campaigns, as my favourite person right now, Alain de Botton, puts it, are not often won by pouring vociferously of a policy. It's the emotional environment attached to a particular party or figure or slogan that really swings it when you boil it down. Yes, we can, strong and stable. And the word dominance gives us something we can attach to understand his football. Klopp had heavy metal football. Pep might have control now, but definitely had tiki-taka previously in his career. But dominance feels like the word of this Arsenal team and could become the word of this era under Arteta. So let's unpack it a bit. As Mikel said, it's about dominating the important zones of the pitch and suffocating teams without a moment to breathe. This is zones of control from Opta Analyst, essentially a measure of what areas of the pitch a team dominates in terms of touches. Blue means the team notated have 55% or more of the touches in that area, red is when the opposition have more touches, and grey is contested, all in open play. There's clear differences between us and our title rivals. Liverpool give up the spaces in behind, out wide to the opposition, and the half spaces are contested, as are the central areas, even up to the halfway line. But for us, the spaces we're dominating are those central ones, through the hub of the pitch, then round the box. We dominate the half spaces where Liverpool don't, and teams only get to dominate their box against us. City is similar to us, with a bit more wide control and some asymmetricality, if that's a word. In short, Arsenal want to box you in, kind of similar to City, where Liverpool want to hit you early and direct. We had the desire to dominate the central, and in my view, most important parts of the pitch. And when you look around and realise how few other teams on this chart can actually achieve that symmetrical balance or domination in the half spaces and central areas that we do, it's mightily impressive. Look at Aston Villa, for example, who are 4th at time of recording. So it's about territory, but it's also about physical domination, which is where I think Arteta begins his deviation from Pep, which could be a whole other video. Jorginho recently spoke about Arteta's insistence on winning the second ball, and we know his love of duels. Look at that game against Liverpool. How many times, when forced long, do we hoover up those second balls and regain control? That requires a physical level that I don't think Pep prioritises in his signings. Look at the players who've come into the team under Arteta. Partey, Saliba, Havertz, Rice, Kivior, Tomiyasu, Gabriel, White, all 6'1" or above. And look specifically where they play on the pitch. They play in the areas where we want to contest the ball the most. But it's not just the height, it's the athletic intensity and aggression that can't be summed up in a YouTube video, only experienced live. Look at us coming out of the tunnel and you see the idea. The word dominance fits this team, because I think we've taken the best parts of both Man City and Liverpool and combined them. We'll come to this in-game in a second, but let's just look at it statistically and credit to ESPN for their work on this, as I'm drawing a lot from it. Here's a question for you. Which league metrics do you think, stereotypically, Klopp and Liverpool will be best at? What is Klopp after? I'd say high turnovers, counter-pressing, PPDA, and progressive passing, as they often get it forward quick. You may disagree, but I think that's a decent stat. And what metrics is Pep, let's say again, stereotypically, after? Again, you may disagree, but I think it's fair to say possession, average sequence time, touches in the final third, and overall XG, as they make so many chances. So that's fine, but here's the exciting part. We are either nearly matching or exceeding those two teams and managers in their chosen stats on both sides. For the Liverpool metrics, high turnovers, we are 1 behind them in total, with more high turnovers leading to a shot and matching them for leading to a goal. Our PPDA is only 0.7 behind them and a full 2.6 beyond City. But for our counter press, we're way ahead of them for height and success rate, and we're way out in front for progressive passes. For the City metrics, we're a few possession points behind them and a few points behind them for sequence time, though we attack more directly, so there's a trade-off there. But final third touches, we're above them by some distance, and we're above them in XG. Not only that, we now have the best XG differential in the entire league, better than Man City, though they do have 2 games in hand. This is a team that blends the best of both worlds. And because of that, we are dominant. Yeah. This all comes out in the game against Liverpool, and I just want to focus on 2 examples in 2 phases. First, our build-up, and second, how we stop them playing through us or our block. There's hours on the training ground perfecting body position, timing, spacing, and so on, which can be seen throughout the game, but let's just look at some good examples. First, the build-up to our first goal. As you can see, Liverpool have committed 6 men forward, so over half their team in our half, and they normally kill you by doing that. I think they were trying to stop the entry pass to Rice and Jorginho here, so we have to move them around. White plays it back to Saliba, who lets it run across his body, and you can see Gabriel backtracking to create himself some time when he receives the ball in a second, because he could just receive it where he is. Small but important detail. Saliba plays it to Gabriel, and Jorginho drops in, which drags Jones and McAllister as Gravenberch presses Gabriel. Gabriel plays the ball inside to Jorginho, who is extraordinary by the way, and you can see by his body position that he already knows his next pass as he opens it up. That goes to Havertz, whose gravity is pulling his marker with him and opening up the left side for Zinchenko. That ball goes back into Gabriel, and Zinchenko is away. By pulling them in, now Arsenal are up the pitch, and we've managed to create a favourable numerical superiority as every single Liverpool attacker and midfielder attempts to recover. Havertz dropping in like that isn't a mistake. Mikel, as we've heard many times, spends hours on instructions like, when X happens, that's the cue for Y to occur, and we saw Havertz do it again and again and again over the course of the game. In our block, we were less flashy, but arguably more impressive. I want to shout out Ødegaard in this regard, who is our foundation in all of this. Van Dijk's on the ball looking for an opening. Ødegaard's happy to bide his time and not jump in, as all the lanes are covered, barring a risky pass into McAllister, which Liverpool did a number of times and lost it by doing so. The ball comes over to Konate, and Havertz steps onto him to force an early decision as the team shifts over. You can see Martinelli's head here. He's tracking what might be the next move, so he adjusts. Instead, the ball comes back over. Ødegaard is giving instructions, and you can see Rice tracking that potential ball over the top as White steps onto Diaz. They're forced back even further to Alisson. Not sure what Ødegaard and Jorginho are saying as the ball is with Konate again, but it's more evidence of that constant communication, and in this next slide, Gabriel is communicating as well, as Martinelli tracks his runner and Rice tracks another runner. They're forced back yet again, and eventually Alisson just picks it up and tries a hopeful ball, which Saliba collects. That was happening all afternoon. For all the Liverpool were awful chat that Sky did, there's a reason for that. Liverpool kill you 2 ways. They stop you building, which they couldn't do, and they go through you quickly, which they couldn't do. Liverpool being awful tells you there's credit due elsewhere. When you can get your build-up, set pieces, blocks, 1v1s, second balls, counter-press, and so on right, it ends up being domination. Yeah. If you're sat there and you're unconvinced by Mikel Arteta and you think he should be sacked at the end of the season if he doesn't win the title, I want to say something to you. Are Pep and Klopp in your top 5 Premier League managers of all time? Because if they are, as I imagine they are, then what you're saying is that the guy we have deserves the sack the season before one of them departs because he could match them football-wise, but he couldn't win a title in the era where there was 2 of the best Premier League managers of all time at their peak, with a team still pre-maturation in his first job with injuries. That is what you're saying. And I wonder if your expectations need to be lowered. It's like cancelling Mbappe's contract aged 18 because he's not hit Ronaldo and Messi levels. Sometimes I think we need to get out of our Arsenal echo chambers and actually wake up a bit to the environment. What Arteta is achieving in this era in terms of rivaling 2 of the greatest Premier League managers of all time isn't normal. Am I saying Mikel is faultless? Obviously not. I think his hit rate with signings is a bit low. I've talked about his use of young players. I think he can be naive with the media at times, but he's there and he's going to be there.
And we will be there. More than you believe we will be there.
He's also learning. We used to complain about his subs, nothing now. We used to complain he was stubborn, nothing now. We used to complain about his use of squad. I did, certainly, which is much better this season. He's improving, and the football IQ was always there. The celebration police don't actually know what they want Arsenal to be. According to them, we need to win games or we're out the title race, so then we win the game and then we're told off for being happy about it. It doesn't make logical sense because it isn't logical. It's based on a way of looking at football, maybe understandably, over the last near decade that sees Klopp and Pep and then the others. But that isn't the case anymore. In the last 6 months of this Premier League season, and I'd argue before, it's Klopp, Pep and Arteta. And soon, it will just be the latter two. Look at that moment with Ødegaard and Stuart McFarlane. That is Arsenal. The club captain recognising what these moments mean to lifelong Arsenal fans. Let's focus on those moments and stick together. Mikel has not surpassed them, of course not, but he's in that conversation and we're in the title race for another year running. And as Klopp leaves, the future looks brighter and brighter. If you like The Different Knock, you can support us on Patreon monthly, or you can buy us a